Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Now that cooler temperatures are on the way, we want to spend a little time this morning talking about weeds that you may see in your fields this fall. Joining us now is Angela Post, our extension weed scientist. And Angela, let's just get rolling. Tell us what you have in your hand right here.
So this one is called henbit or Lamium amplexicol. So one of the common wintertime weeds that you're going to see in your fields. This one is probably a little bit bigger than what you're seeing in your fields right now. I've collected it out of a larger area, but you can see kind of crinkled crenate leaves with these kind of scalloped margins and little purple flowers. A lot of times we don't see these purple flowers until much later in the season, but we'll take a look at some smaller ones as well, more the size that you would be seeing in your field right now.
And some of these are a little bit hard to kind of tell apart, right?
Right, so the important thing we want to focus on this morning is identification. So to take a look at a smaller one of these in the field here, we have a teeny tiny one. This is about the size you're seeing them in the field right now. So very, very small, still within the realm of control here. So up to 2 to 4 inches would be the timeline you would want to control these. A herbicide application would control this size specimen very easily as long as you have a product that's labeled for henbit control. We're also going to take a look at several weeds that are basal rosettes that are very difficult to tell apart. So first we have sow thistles. These have just started to germinate. We have cooler soil temperatures. Let's take a look at the evening primrose rosette. And these all will make a basal rosette, and it will spread out on the ground, you know, about this far before it starts to bolt later in the spring.
Now we have here the prickly lettuce.
Yeah, so this is another one that forms a rosette that you can see can be challenging to tell apart from some of the other ones we looked at this morning. So also a nice clear midrib on this and some cuts in the leaves. It will also make a nice round rosette about this large. But if we pull back the leaf on the prickly lettuce, there are some little spines that run along this midrib. So that is a clear identifying characteristic of prickly lettuce. And if you look there, I've broken that midrib, and also produces a white milky sap. And that is also a good identifying character to tell this apart from the evening primrose and also the sow thistle that we were looking at just a minute ago.
And last but not least, we have some volunteer canola.
We do have a tiny one here. Canola is in the mustard family, and so its cotyledons are going to be sort of heart-shaped. So you see that's the first cotyledon out there, and it will have 2 of those. And then the next leaves will look more like what we tend to think about as being mustard leaves. And so here we have the canola plant that's, once it gets a lot larger, it's going to be much more difficult to control. This one has maybe 7 or 8 true leaves on it already. And so as we get further into the fall and these are interfering with our wheat crop, we may see that they're more challenging to control.
So we might not normally think about canola being a weed in the fields right now.
Yeah, so you may not even have planted canola last year, but remember canola is a very tiny seed, and as we move it around the state, it's going to fall off of those trucks. And so we may see it in ditch banks, we may see it creep into the edges of our fields as well. And we want to be conscious of that even if we weren't canola growers, because it can become a weed in our wheat fields. And if you were growing canola last year, we do see those plants shatter some of their seed back into the field. And so we want to pay attention for those as they start to compete with our wheat crop if we did have shattering in the field last year.
Okay, great advice, Angela Post. Thanks a lot. And for more information on weed identification, we have a link to Angela's website at sunup.okstate.edu.
Last week, you may have heard some news about this Trans-Pacific Partnership, and Larry, let's go through it. What is it?
Well, It's actually a trade agreement. It's the largest one we have ever negotiated as a regional agreement, and it's 12 countries. If you start on the west coast of South America and bounce from Peru to Chile and then go across the South Pacific to New Zealand and Australia, and then you go up the east coast of Asia, and you're going to run into Brunei and Malaysia and Vietnam and Singapore, and then you're going to get over to Japan, which is one of our largest trading partners, and then you're going to jump across the northern Pacific and go to Canada and the US and then down to Mexico. So all of those countries make up the largest regional trading zone that we've been involved in.
Let's drill that down to Oklahoma. What does this mean for the Oklahoma ag producer?
Well, you know, exports of agricultural stuffs from Oklahoma has become a very important moneymaker for some people in Oklahoma. We probably export $7 to $8 billion a year of agricultural commodities to the rest of the world. And this part of the world, the Pacific Rim there, has become one of our major trading partners as a group. Individually, we still trade a lot with Canada and China and Mexico and Japan, but as a region, we have broken all records here. So what we're probably going to see is that wheat is going to benefit and beef is going to benefit. Depends on what analysis you look at, that pork might as well. Many other countries around the world tax what we sell them.
Right.
Japan, for example, we call those taxes tariffs. Japan's tariff on agricultural goods from the United States is 40%.
Wow.
So if we sell them a $10 bushel of grain, they tack on another $4, and that's what it costs that country. The main reason they're doing it is to protect their domestic market.
Right.
And when they don't have a domestic market in something, they don't produce it, they may not have much of a tax or a tariff. But we only tax on average about 12%.
Really?
It's coming into our country. So we're one of the lowest tariff holders in the world. And this new trade agreement is going to bring some of those tariffs down to zero, and the ones it doesn't bring down to zero will begin to be on a schedule of tariff rate quotas, and they'll be reduced over time. So there's going to be some huge opportunities for people who can export to these countries.
Is this the final deal? Is it all set in stone now? Are we moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we're so used to the president supporting or promoting legislation that goes through Congress, and it gets nickel and dime to death.
Right.
You know, the administration, whoever's the president, can negotiate in good faith and bring that to the table of Congress and say, okay, you can vote thumbs up or thumbs down. All the transparency they wanted is coming. So there will be a pretty thorough vetting in November and December about this, but you know, come December before they go home for Christmas or when they come back in January, this will be at the top of the list for Congress to make a decision on.
Okay, thank you much, and we'll have you back several times between now and then, of course. Larry Sanders with Oklahoma State University.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. The rainfall in our state has been discouraging. A map showing the rainfall totals from October 4th through the 14th has a lot of blue on it, but that's an indication of low rainfall amounts. The highest rainfall over these 10 days in early October was at Winona in Osage County with 47/100ths of an inch. Most sites on this rainfall map had less than 1/4 of an inch. That brings us to our Keetch-Byram Drought Index. This soil moisture index goes from 0, wet, to 800, bone dry. Green areas that have good moisture are disappearing in the state. The bright red and purple colors indicate dry conditions that heighten the wildfire risk. One of the Mesonet tools for monitoring fire risk is the Fire Danger Burning Index. This index is a guide to the risk of fire and the flame height at the head of the fire. This map from 3 p.m. Monday afternoon shows the full range of fire risk. The green areas have a very low risk of fire. The risk increases from yellow to orange to red to burgundy. Burgundy-colored areas have a burning index of more than 110 and a fire flame height of 11 feet. Here's Gary with a look at 2 weather problems.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, the way I see it, we have 2 problems. Number 1, I grew this beard to get ready for fall. Number 2, it hasn't felt like fall yet. Now that's a personal problem for me. The bigger problem we have is drought spreading across the state. So let's take a look at the latest U.S. Drought Monitor map, see what we have. As you can see, we now have almost the entire 1/5 of the southern part of the state covered by extreme to severe drought. Those are the browns and the reds. And we also have a tongue of moderate drought extending up into central Oklahoma. And to make matters worse, we also have D0, or that abnormally dry condition, now starting to permeate into the northeastern part of the state. So conditions are looking worse and worse as far as the drought goes. But it does look like we have a possible pattern change coming as we get into the second week. You can see here from the Climate Prediction Center, we do see increased odds of above normal precipitation for the coming week. And also as we get into the final week of the month, we also see increased odds for above normal precipitation. So if we do see that pattern change, it would be a welcome change indeed. So time's running out on our fall rainy season. We need that rain to come quick, and we need that to start to alleviate those building drought conditions. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We want to update an ongoing research project here at Oklahoma State University. We're joined by Jason Warren, who is our Soil Conservation Extension Specialist. And Jason, we've been out here a couple of times with Dave Lawman talking about the cattle aspect of this project. But give us an overview and kind of tell us what your role is in this project.
Right. Well, this is an intensive cropland grazing systems project, and my main role out here is to help the animal science folks implement a successful no-till system on this cropland. And so this is a continuous graze out wheat system, and then we're adding summer forage production to that system. In the past, like last summer, we had sorghum sudan, cowpeas, and sun hemp from the aspect of incorporating a cover/forage crop. And that worked pretty well, but then this year they asked us to put crabgrass out here, and there's a lot of acres of this graze out wheat that will have crabgrass on it in the summertime, but there's not a lot of research on it. And so this year what we did is we top dressed the wheat in March with about 70 pounds of nitrogen, and in that we had a mix crabgrass. Once the cattle are in here and they start to graze this off from, say, April through May, the crabgrass starts popping up in the areas where the cattle have taken more forage off the wheat, and so that bare ground is then covered by the crabgrass. But on these higher, sandier soils where we don't have drainage problems, we had a carpet of crabgrass in here by about the 15th of May, and they had cattle in here certainly by the 1st of June, and they run them through the 10th of August. So instead of having just say December through May grazing on the wheat, we add June, July, and a portion of August with this crabgrass. And then the question is can you no-till into that? And if you look out here into this wheat, we have a beautiful stand of wheat that was planted into this crabgrass residue.
Now, in terms of the crabgrass, you mentioned a few of the pros and cons. Go into that a little more.
Well, and I'll start with the cons, and I didn't mention this, but this is not a system that I would, want our prime crop land that's growing corn and beans and 50, 60 bushel wheat for grain. This is a graze out program, and so this is going to be on your ground where you're going to be grazing that wheat out most often or every year, because what we hypothesize is that we are losing a lot of our moisture in the summer fallow period, and in a traditional graze out program we'll graze that through, say, the second week of May, and then we'll till it up and leave it fallow. And that is very hard on ground, particularly when we take the wheat, all the wheat away, and we just have bare ground and then we till it all summer. Because we talk about residue and organic matter in our no-till systems, but when we remove all the surface residue through grazing and then till it, that's much worse on a piece of ground, from my observation anyway, than just growing grain and then tilling it. And so that soil tends to be very poorly structured. It's very susceptible to crusting and a lot of other soil problems. And then all summer long it's evaporating water.
And are there already some takeaways that you're able to pass along to Oklahoma producers?
Well, for one thing, crabgrass doesn't like wet feet. It'll come up sporadically through the spring as the ground warms, but in these continuously grazed systems, we're taking advantage of the summer rainfall, which is actually tends to be more prominent these days than what it has in the past. And then if we can get the September rains to recharge this soil, then we can get a pretty nice stand of wheat. Where we have very heavy residue, we're going to see a little bit of a delay in forage production. And so some of the best wheat growth out here is where we have nearly 100% ground cover, but we only have maybe a ½ inch to an inch and a half of thatch to cut through.
All right, Jason Warren, thanks a lot. We appreciate the update.
Last week on the Cow-Calf Corner, you recall we visited with you about the different categories that cull cows, those that are going on to the packing plant, that they're going to be graded in, and the way the pricing works. And quite frankly, a good deal of that pricing for those different categories of breakers, boners, leans, and lights are based on the fleshiness or the fatness of those cows. And part of the rationale as to why those different grades are priced differently is due to what we call the dressing percent. Dressing percent just is that calculation that is the carcass weight, that actually would have some saleable product for the packer, divided by the live weight. That they're actually buying the cow at as she goes through the auction arena. Dressing percent makes up a huge part of the pricing difference within each one of those grades as well. For instance, you may see where high dressing lean cows may actually bring a few more dollars per hundredweight than a real low dressing boner cow. And it's just due to the fact that the packer buyers that are purchasing these cows are trying to get the most sellable dollar for the live cow that they purchase as it goes through the arena. Some of the things that will affect dressing percent, besides fleshiness, are primarily fill. If some of these cows look like they really are tanked up with a lot of water and feed in them as they were going to go across the sale weight scales, those cows will probably be discounted pretty heavily. Also, cows with very large udders or cows that are carrying lots of mud on their hide are again indications of something that adds live weight but certainly doesn't add any to the hanging carcass weight where there's some saleable product. I think as you're marketing cows this or any fall, I think you want to keep that in mind, that trying to put extra feed and extra water into these cows for added weight just before you sell them probably is going to be counterproductive, because they will be discounted so heavily because of that influence on dressing percent, that you'll actually lose dollars compared to the cow that just walks through in average fill or even looks a little bit ganned. I think you want to keep this in mind as you're marketing cows. Understand that principle of dressing percent. It really does influence the price that packer buyers pay for these cows. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you once again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. And Kim, a lot of people have the dry conditions on their mind and saying we sure could use a little bit of rain.
Well, it depends on where you're located in Oklahoma. If you go down to about the southern two tiers of counties, you're getting into severe drought. And as you move north, especially I-35 to about the two counties just this side of western Oklahoma, you've got abnormally dry, and then you've got normal conditions out in the panhandle in western Oklahoma. I think that it's not a problem yet, but it soon could be if we don't get some rain.
Then what are you hearing from producers about wheat planting?
Well, I've seen pictures on the social media that some producers are dusting it in, is what they're talking about. Again, we've got some subsoil moisture, we've got surface moisture in some areas, but moisture is becoming a problem there. We've got about 75% of the wheat crop planted, but we do need some rain on it.
How is all this impacting some of the other crops?
Well, if you look at corn, grain sorghum, soybeans, this dry weather is good for harvesting those crops. The corn harvest is 75–80% completed in Oklahoma. You look at the sorghum, it's probably about 50% completed, and soybeans are somewhere around 30–40%. So this dry weather is good for those harvests.
And then in terms of wheat prices and other crop prices in general, what are you watching?
Well, most of the prices are staying relatively low. This last week, corn production estimates have went up, so corn prices have dropped a little bit. Soybean prices on the other side just went up a little bit, but mostly they're just wallering around. You look at the wheat market, it's moving from $4.90 to $5.20. It is still in a short run up trend, but if we don't get some prices above $5.20 within the next week, you can say that we're in a sideways movement on the wheat prices.
Okay, keep us posted. Kim Anderson, we'll see you next week. And now we want to turn to our friend Damona Doy with a preview of the upcoming Rural Economic Outlook Conference.
So the Rural Economic Outlook Conference is designed to give people insights into new trends, what they might anticipate for the year ahead that would impact them, whether they're producers, agricultural lenders, government agency officials. So we try to bring in a variety of speakers that will capture kind of big picture thinking, as well as some things that are very practical in terms of providing insights as to what's going on in the state. So we're really excited this year to have Lowell Catlett, who's a futurist, who thinks and talks about not only technology, but education, healthcare. Beyond that, we have Matt Waits, who's the CEO of SST Software here in Stillwater, to talk about big data. In addition, we have Jeff Mowens from the Noble Foundation talking about soil health. In addition, we have Robert Doffenbach, who's with the Center to do the Oklahoma Economic Outlook and some macroeconomic trends. The conference is designed to not only look at kind of future trends, but to kind of capture where the state of the state is now. So the conference will be on Friday, October 30th. You're invited as well to reception on Thursday evening. The conference and the reception will be at the ConocoPhillips Alumni Center here on campus. And registration is $50 if you register by Friday, October 23rd.
Finally today, a look at how 4-H is bringing together science and a lesson on life.
National 4-H Week is a celebration of 4-H across the nation, actually across the world, and it's an opportunity for our members to get out and visit in their communities and just show the great things that happens with their involvement in 4-H and all the great things that they get to do and learn while they're participating in the program.
One more thing that happens during National 4-H Week this year is National Youth Science Day. And this is a day when we celebrate the science that has infused 4-H for more than 100 years, and all of the science that goes into the agriculture that we do, the rocketry, the environmental science, and all the natural resources.
Today is the National Youth Science Day, October 7th, and it's been designated by the National 4-H Council. So this experiment is being conducted in all the states and really on the military installations where we have 4-H clubs all around the world. We've trained educators here in Oklahoma, so this will happen all across Oklahoma. Sometimes today, sometimes just during the month of October, but it's a message that we want to get out, and it's important. We want to promote 4-H science, but we also want to promote safety and some safe driving habits. Today's experiment is about Newton's laws, and we're going to look at car crashes, but probably more importantly, we're going to look at what causes car crashes. We're going to look at how humans interact with cars and how they get distracted and the things that happen to them that can cause these wrecks.
I learned that while texting and driving and getting distracted with all sorts of new stuff really can get you hit by a car, and I think making the experiment was really fun. Just like making the model of your person.
This day is important to Oklahoma. 4-H's roots are based in science. And by highlighting science on this day, and this will be the 8th year that we've done this, we're highlighting the value that 4-H puts on science and encouraging kids to get involved in science, maybe even select careers in science, because as a nation, there's a shortage of scientists and engineers and technologists. More are retiring than are graduating from our colleges, and we're trying to fill that gap and fill that void.
Well, we've had a long-term study going on known as the TOUGH study, and we get some really good results out of that. You know, kids that are involved in 4-H are less likely to be involved in risky behaviors. They're more likely to give back to their communities. They're more likely to be involved in science. So we've got some really good stuff with that. So what we do is we sell the kids on fun, and we get them involved in something that they really enjoy doing, whether that's science or our traditional ag programs or shooting sports, whatever that is. We really attract them with their interest, and while we're doing that, we sneak in all of these life skills that we talk about. So, at the end of the day, when our kids graduate and then they go on, they know about conflict resolution, and they know about record keeping, and they know how to work as a member of a team, and they know how to keep records. That's not something we've pushed at them, it's just something they've done. So, our goal is to make them, contributing members of their community and society when they graduate, and we're very successful at that according to our research studies.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. I'm Lyndall Stout. We'll see you next time at SUNUP.